you're stumbling upon it, I think, just because its location is so odd. I actually used to live in Mission, even during the flood in Calgary, so I know how much that island had shifted. After the flood lost our home, like I hadn't been back to visit it, so it was nice to like return and check it out. And it was exciting to see that it was being revitalized.
Jeremy and I had a collaborative practice, and I think the idea with the benches for Wandering Island is that each of the benches would be designed by a collaborative team. So Jeremy and I had shown work quite a bit in Alberta as a collaborative team, and that's where the invite came from.
We do a lot of sculptural, like heavy-duty sculptural work, but inside the gallery. And then we collaborate on stuff outside of art that's structural. Our gallery work has a sense of humor to it and a little bit of a joke.
A lot of our collaboration is rooted in our friendship. So like casual conversations, we find humor in like similar parts of life. And when we hit those points of alignment between our two lives with the humor, that usually leads into an art project. With the original bench idea, the thought was, what if there's this tree that's intended to be cut down on the Wandering Island, but it then lands across the path onto a concrete bench. So the idea is that the tree lands on the bench and like shifts it out of the ground. And so it becomes this big like accident in the forest. And yeah, that whole situation just becomes more of an open concept bench.
This is a little silly, I think, but also references greater things and stuff with climate change and stuff with building in a flood zone. All the planning you can do still has a variable of like, once the contractors drill into the ground for all the anchor points, like if they uncover something and something has to move, it's just, you might have to change an element in the design, or might have to change a material, or you might have to change the size. And I mean, we already bought our logs, so making that work. I guess the hope is that it all lines up.
In the moment when we were ready to install the original bench idea, and then we found out there were a lot of site restrictions that were preventing us from doing that, it was frustrating, but like that scenario just like made us aware of the challenges of installing in such a remote location.
I was like pretty frustrated with our first design not being worked out. It made it all the way to being delivered to site before people installing it realized that this was not something they could execute. There was a bit of back and forth of what redesigning back to zero would look like, but at the same time, like that was also an opportunity for us to decide if we wanted to participate, and like we definitely did, because we had kind of like really enjoyed working in that space, and it would be a shame to just have nothing happen.
We have been wandering around looking for different bench sites, and the site for the wheelbarrow benches is a little challenging because it'd be nice to be close to the river, but we need enough of a footprint to put the benches in. And so we looked at 3 different sites today, possibly more, to try and find the ideal location for the wheelbarrow benches. That and like all of the hoops that Jeremy and Sean had to jump through with their designs, and like just the severe limitations of this particular natural environment, and like the tenderness of the actual land.
Our first design was like, used a lot of natural materials, and the second design we're really going for like a completely man-made object. Sean and I, sometimes when we're starting a new project, we just like kind of crack jokes at each other.
And the thought that led us eventually to the wheelbarrow was, I presented the question to Jeremy, like, what if the bench itself was the means for getting the material to the site? So like, and then we both like sat with that for a second, and then like it clicked in at the exact same time. We were like, wheelbarrow.
We each both had a memory throughout our childhood and like eating your lunch or taking a rest or whatever by tipping a wheelbarrow on its handles so the wheel's in the air and just like sitting and lounging in there. We just both started laughing and like, wait a second, like there might be something there.
Once we were confident with that idea, the challenge became, how do we take what looks like a wheelbarrow, or how do we sculpt a wheelbarrow given that we have like a fairly limited budget for materials to do this?
And like obviously we didn't want to use like a working product that was just like off the shelf. We like that idea of that things sometimes get left behind on construction sites and they get utilized. It's not very uncommon to come across like a piece of construction equipment or material left behind in a cityscape park. So we thought it would actually be a pretty good fit. Also, like, it's a bit of humor in it. It's like kind of meant to be a cool object, but also be like a bit of a laugh and also be comfortable.
One area that the curatorial team for Wandering Island were super helpful in was finding the perfect location for these benches. So we placed the 2 benches at a small clearing, so they became an area that viewers could come and sit and like take in the landscape in front of them. But then one unanticipated element to the whole design and the placement was the fact that these like wheelbarrow cups became a way to like collect the sound from the landscape. Viewers were not only taking in the landscape, they were like getting sort of an amplified version of the soundscape in front of them.
Outside of our art practice, Sean and I both are builders and designers and tradesmen. Coming up with an infrastructure project like that has a physical purpose as opposed to just a sculpture was kind of a nice way to correlate our professional practices in a way for the public that is quite literally a bench, but at the same time it's a sculpture, at the same time it's like a design build. And it's been like quite a fun challenge to work on. My hope with these projects is it's like a bit of a two-parter. Like you have a self-discovery by finding the location, then you want to bring someone back to show them that location, and then hopefully that person then wants to show someone else, and etc. And it just maybe becomes a meeting point that is just this like unnatural looking thing in a very natural looking park.